Now I'm not getting the full effect of this track, as they call it.
Mm-hmm.
But one has to wonder if it sounds good. Because it sounds a little staticky.
I don't hear staticky on my end.
Interesting. Well, it's experimental. It's Mutants and Masterminds Monday, and we are, we're hanging out. This is our little pre-show, pre-funk, can't stop the funk, witty repartee.
Oh, we could stop the funk. We could stop it here.
We choose not to.
Do not make me pull this funk over.
You beat me by 2 seconds.
You children do not stop jiving.
I love it. Looks like we've got some folks coming in. We got some Chatterooskies happen. Just another guy named Harry. Hey, Harry. I think you've got one of the best usernames. Yeah, just another guy named Harry. Harry waves. Apook says, good evening from the Freedom City server. I say, good Mutants and Masterminds Monday unto you all. We're streaming on Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. Rick Grayson says, hello, friends. I should be sharing this, huh? Aye, there we go. So, the reason why I sound like I'm doing this for the first time is primarily because I'm doing it for the first time over the phone.
Oh.
Yeah.
So,
what do you say?
Our disembodied presence is telecommuting?
I am telecommuting. I am.
Yes.
You know how hard it is to dial when you're just a mist?
Right. Entering those commands on a rotary phone is going to be murder.
Oh, really
What's a rotary phone?
It's really hard to rotary into the internet, but I figured it out. Well, we should get rid of this background music first. Maybe.
Maybe if you can.
Maybe we just keep it forever, and it just kind of plays on and or not.
This is our life now.
Everybody, I want to welcome you to Mutants and Masterminds Monday. You get to hang and party with your pals, and by pals I mean making some noises to make it sound like I know what I'm doing, but I do not. There we go. Ta-da!
Ta-da!
We have a Steve Henson, we have a Crystal Frazier, and we have an Alex Thomas. Alex Thomas. I keep calling you Alex Thompson. What is wrong with me, Alex?
That's not me. That's the other guy.
Alex,
right?
I'm one of your biggest fans.
No. Alex Thompson doesn't have a beard.
That's true. He's got a good teeth.
It's no longer in this universe, I'm pretty sure.
I like it. I hear that on the volume. Let me get to what I presume will either jettison the entire program or make us sound, loud like we normally do.
Right.
More often finds that we get, hey, you're kind of quiet.
Because no matter how big we look on your screen, we're like incredibly small and tiny on Troy's screen because he has no screen real estate to deal with.
That is exactly right.
It's hard to get a monitor when you're disembodied.
It's so true.
The Best Buy guys keep burning sage and opening the door, hoping you'll wash out.
All right, let's see. I've given us all an amplitude of our volumes. Friends, let me know in chat if you can hear us a little better, or if it's just me that's being quiet, and then just you get right up close to the speaker and listen as I tell the story. It is Mutants. I keep wanting to say Thursday for some reason. It is Mutants and Masterminds Monday, and we've got a good program planned. 420.
I think it's a little generous to say we planned all this.
Right.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah. Welcome everybody to Mutants and Masterminds 20th anniversary.
Right.
Whew. Wow, I feel
Yes,
old
it's me.
saying that.
You feel old saying that.
It's shocking to me that 20 years is. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I picked this book up as a new release, and now this specific book is old enough to die for its country, but not yet old enough to drink alcohol.
Right.
I love that. What is it? Not a girl, not yet a woman. Like,
Yeah. Sorry, Protonic. You're not a girl. You're not yet a woman.
Not yet a
not
woman.
yet a woman. Yeah. Sorry, folks, for my quietness. I'll see what I can do to take it up to 150.
I think that's the first time I've ever heard Troy apologize for his quietness.
I know, right? I'm so unused to it. It just seems so weird.
Oh gosh, that bear is back. Did somebody leave the
well.
trash bins out?
Sure.
Not again.
They're breaking hibernation again.
Always after my picnic baskets.
I'm impressed they have Wi-Fi in the cave.
Yeah, really impressive. Pretty glad to see you, friend. Absolutely. I wonder if our other bear friend will come. Hey, well, so when I picked up Mutants, the first edition Mutants Masterminds, I was working at a company called Carbine, and we were making a video game of the massively multiplayer online type, and an old friend of mine whom I worked with at Pirates of the Burning Sea, Chris Pramus, had launched this thing, and I saw some tweeting about it, and so I bought it, and then nobody would play with me. So I kept it forever. And then lo and behold, here we are now. 20 years later. What? Is that right?
Yeah.
How old am I? What's happening?
We're ancient now, Troy. Gaming has gone or has slipped to a new generation.
I was 10 when M&M-1 came out.
What?
Alex over here getting himself fired again.
Exactly. All right. So Hatchling, when did you start playing?
I did start playing about 10 years ago.
Was
Not
that
bad, everybody.
First edition or second edition?
I started playing with DC Adventures when it came out.
Oh, wow. Was that really?
Yeah, how did you come across
Yeah, that was really 10 years ago. Actually, it was 11 years ago.
Oh, my goodness.
I had seen second edition M&M, but I couldn't get anybody to play a superhero game with me because everybody was stuck on 3.5 D&D. So I bought a few of them, but I didn't get the chance to play until DC Adventures came out, and a bunch of my friends were like, "Oh yeah, DC is cool. I don't want to play with you weird made-up superheroes, Alex."
Listen, Bodhi, he gets no sympathy. None.
Do my knees not still crack when I go down the stairs?
Alex makes my back hurt.
Yeah, mine too. All of a sudden, for some reason. Well, I've also been moving.
Oh, that might have something to do with it.
Yeah, just generally moving around. It's just so painful. I just roll out of bed and it's achy and cracky. I'm actually moved. I moved from one home to another.
But I switched over to Mutants and Masterminds from Silver Age Sentinels, which was Steve's previous superhero game.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily call it mine. I did work on it, but
Bear says they were a convert from or a crossover from Champions.
Welcome. We have many folks who have come to us from Champions.
I'm surprised you had the END to spend to get here.
You know what? Actually, here's something fun. So Jim Street shares a little bit of their M&M-ness, and I can't read it because it's so flippin' small. So let's hope that it's not.
He says when they were new releases, I picked up the beautiful first edition of M&M, Freedom City, Time of Crisis, and the GM screen, and it has been following me around ever since.
Following you around. That's awesome. That is amazing. So what Jim was doing is sharing a little bit of his M&M-ness, which I just made up today on the fly. And what that is,
Mhm.
we want to hear about your stories. We want to hear about how you started,
Mhm.
amazing, fun stuff that you've done, friendships that you've made. Maybe you got married. Whatever the thing may be, share it, and they may win a prize, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
I didn't get married because of Mutants and Masterminds, but my wife and I have played together. She's got a
There you
small
go.
stable of Mutants and Masterminds characters that she loves replaying every time we put a game together.
Fun.
That's awesome.
Now, what is the what I seem to recall a couple, I think, but can you describe some of the heroes?
Oh gosh, her favorite is Lady Keane, who is she was a girl from the I think it's 20s, who had a
Mhm.
fatal wasting disease. So her father used 1920s mad science to place her in suspended animation and launch her into the ionosphere, where he figured the cosmic radiation would cure her disease in 4 or 5 years. But she got stuck up there and only crashed down in the last year or two, imbued with cosmic radiation, and now she has Superman style powers.
That is a
And
great
she's
backstory.
discovered her great niece, her sister's granddaughter, has become a supervillain. So she's using her powers to
Ooh.
stop the family legacy.
How cool! I love that. I love that. Yeah, yeah. The old Fantastic Four treatment, says Bear. That's
Mhm.
great. Let's see. Calvin says, I think the first time I played was about 10-ish years ago, a second edition RPG club in college. My character was called Crime Fighter.
Darkwing. Mm.
Ah, cool.
I mean, if you're going to steal from the best.
Exactly.
I mean, a
My
gas gun
policy.
and buzzsaw cufflinks.
And that's one of the things that I love about Mutants and Masterminds i- is there really theft in this space? Like it's kind of homage, right? I mean,
Mhm.
it's sort of
Mhm.
I love that arrangement. I love that agreement. It just seems very
Well, I mean, it's a
fun.
time-honored tradition where comics have stolen from everything that came
Mhm.
before them. So,
Right.
Yeah, comics steal from literature and mythology and pop culture.
And other
So,
yep.
comics.
Other comics, science
yeah.
fiction.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, what's the most egregious sort of one-to-one similarity in like the Marvel DC sort of
Deadpool and
presence?
Deathstroke really irritates me.
That's
Yep.
fair.
Yeah, is there
Especially considering that his name, their actual names, there are Slade and Wade Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, that's just. Do you ever hear, and I haven't personally, but do you ever hear about like Marvel and DC getting into some, fisticuffs because, they're like, hey, come on.
Oh,
That's,
not in
just because you named him
years.
Wolverine.
No,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, there was that
they
whole
used.
DC stole Jack Kirby thing for a while.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I think that was the last time there was a really big, dust up between DC and Marvel.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, they used to do the old, parody versions of each other's characters, where you got the Squadron Supreme and the whatever it is, the Champions of Angkor, or whatever Marvel's DC's version of the Avengers was.
Oh, Lord. Yeah.
All of that.
A Swamp Thing and Man. Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You're
And then
still cutting in and out there, Troy.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, I'm kind of tap dancing on the screen here and talking. So let's talk about so Steve, 20 years. I'm still, at first I was like, I'll play up sort of the shock, the roller slow, but really, I mean, the longevity and how
I,
Mutants and Masterminds resonates. It's
Hmm.
yeah. We're having
I
a
caught
lot of trouble hearing
most
you,
of that.
Troy. I think we're
okay.
going to have
Yeah.
to take over hosting duties.
Yeah, yeah. Why don't you do that while I figure out what's wrong with it?
So,
Alrighty.
Steve, 20 years. Do you want to talk about some of your initial design thoughts and what's changed between, say, first
Sure.
edition and now?
Oh gosh, that's a long list. I mean, as they say, if I'd known it was going to be around longer, I would have planned better. Um, But initially the idea was to take the system resource document from third edition D&D and turn it into a superhero game. And so first edition M&M, although it departs in a few significant areas like the damage saving throws and things like that, still cleaves pretty close to a lot of the sort of third edition D&D mechanics as far as the stuff that was in the SRD, is even, I'm pretty sure timing wise that first edition D&D is even pre D20 Modern and a lot of the other, sort of, modern implementations of a lot of the SRD stuff. So there was a certain amount of guesswork in terms of filling in some of the more modern technical aspects of it.
If it didn't predate publishing, it definitely predated development. Copyright 2000. No, wait, that's
no
for the
2002.
SRD.
I'm pretty. Yeah, 2000 for the SRD.
Yep.
We're actually 22 years old.
So, I'm bad at hosting. This is why we have Troy. But yeah, like, you can definitely see the third edition DNA just because, I mean, the initial skill list is 40 skills long and separates out climbing and jumping and swimming into their own distinct skills. I think I saw balance as its own skill.
Ironically, for a superhero game, rope use is not in first edition Mutants and Masterminds. Use rope, excuse me, the third edition skill.
You also didn't include use magic device, which, as we all know, was the most important skill in third edition D&D.
Yes, indeed.
How's my audio?
Oh, there we go.
Hey,
welcome back, Troy.
Hey, hi. Worked it out.
But yeah, and I gotta say, for a game that was brand new, the art direction came with such a well-developed, fleshed-out world where the hero archetypes at the beginning of the book, for those who don't know, were their own characters from a setting called Metaphor.
Yep.
That the design house that you worked with put together, and all of the art in the book features them as if they were in comic book panels with, dialogue bubbles and action and well-established, well-defined personalities.
Joshua offer real quick. Oh, sorry. I just adds William Marston would disapprove of the lack of use of rope. Yeah.
Yes, I imagine so.
And
Super Unicorn did a terrific job with the graphic design and the art direction for the first edition of the game. I think that part of the reason that M&M made a big splash initially was the fact that we had just great art and design, so that the book was really eye-catching, and a lot of people picked it up and took a good look at it.
Yeah, a lot of characters like Gadget and Pugilist have kind of survived as sort of
background characters.
Background. And I mean, the Gadget Guide is almost a direct inheritor from Gimmick's Guide to Gadgets for first edition.
Yeah, very much so.
So I'm curious about the way that first edition, second edition, third edition evolved, and sort of like, can you, Steve, and everybody, I mean, is it, players seem to be fairly keyed in to the differences. What were the motivations like to move? Like, when do you decide it's time to do? We're going into, it's time for our next form.
Well, second edition came about when Green Ronin hired me to run Mutants and Masterminds, basically to basically turn it into a really full-fledged game line and hired me on as developer. And I basically said, well, the first thing I want to do is I want to, do a new edition. And, basically, kind of relaunch the game and go from there, because M&M had been out for a couple of years at that point. I had run and played it up quite a lot at that point, and I had learned a lot. The initial design of the game, while it certainly got some play testing, did not get nearly as rigorous, an amount of use as once the game was out and lots of people were playing it, and I was running it at conventions, and and of course there was just tons and tons of innovation in design in the D20 area at that time as well. D20 Modern came along, lots of additional versions and adaptations of the D20 system, and so there were a bunch of things, and I just got a lot of feedback from folks about what they liked and didn't like, and what I thought worked and didn't work, and I wanted to incorporate all of that. So that led to the design work on second edition, and I ended up doing a much longer play test, because I also had a bigger player base to draw from, to recruit play testers to say, hey, I'm going to be working on a new edition, and get people's feedback and do more extensive play testing on a lot of stuff. So third edition came about largely because of DC Adventures. When we got the DC license, by that point, second edition M&M had been around for probably 7 years, give or take, and was pretty, mature as a game system. DC specifically wanted a standalone game. They didn't want a DC supplement to an existing game. They wanted a DC branded game. So we knew we were going to publish a new core rulebook one way or another. So we thought it was a good opportunity to, kind of update things and do a new edition.
So was there one of the big updates between second and third edition was jumping from the traditional Dungeons and Dragons attributes or ability scores to the 8 ability scores M&M uses now? So what was the big thought behind that? That's
so it was primarily a combination of sort of jettisoning the old D&D 3 to 18 ability score range, because it didn't serve a function in the game apart from calculating the actual number that you used. So it was like you use this number to figure out the actual number you're going to use, and then you ignore that number pretty much for the rest of the game. And so we were like, there's no point in keeping it. We're just going to get rid of that. The notion of renaming a couple of abilities so that they were less D&D-ish. Wisdom was always a weird fit for superhero characters. For essentially the added abilities come from taking second edition's attack ability, which was basically, here's the one ability score that shows how good you are at combat, and breaking it up amongst a bunch of different ability scores, creating the fighting ability for close combat, and distributing some of the attack scores abilities amongst the different ability scores. So it wasn't quite so omnipresent, and you could have a little bit more fine control over characters who were better at ranged combat, better at close combat, those kinds of things, which was also useful in our modeling of a lot of the DC characters, because we did initial design work for DC Adventures using a lot of the second edition stuff, and did drafts of a lot of the Justice League and things like that. And one of the things that definitely showed up was, wow, like if you're Batman and you're going to be good at fighting, or if you're a Wonder Woman, it's like, well, if you want to be like a better close combatant, it's a little harder. You can do it, but it's a little kludgy. And so we ended up going with that in order to break it up a bit and kind of recognize that basically attack was basically an ability score of its own anyway.
So we've had a few questions rolling around, but I made a discovery. This is what Bear had to say. Flavability. So that's why Bear's hanging around, because Bear loves to eat superheroes. That's what this is about. He loves the flavability. I see you, Bear. Here's a question from Nicholas Morrow, who says, how would you speed up combat?
I mean, that's kind of unrelated to the topic.
It really is. Yeah. It's so Nicholas. No, I'm kidding. That's my fault. Let's see. Oh, I do want to acknowledge Bob says hello from the 2E playtest land. Nice. Glad that you are with us. Let's see here.
Too.
Oh, Nicholas does say thank you for jettisoning the old attributes from D&D.
Welcome.
We did that just for you, Nicholas. Thanks for asking or making a relevant comment. So one of when I think about editions and I think about the changes, or some of them monumental and big pieces of the machinery that drives the whole engine of sort of conflict resolution around a table. Are there ever pieces that you wish you could incorporate, or that you like? Do you miss something that you had to sort of send away?
That's a good question.
Good question.
I do wish that I like the way that powers are designed in 3rd edition. I wish that 3rd edition had better expressed some of the simplicity of, or the sort of upfrontness of power design in 2nd edition. 3rd edition is definitely a little bit more gamified and a little bit more of a designer's approach to things. And I think that I tended to incorporate a lot of the stuff that we did in Ultimate Power in 2nd edition into 3rd edition. And in retrospect, I kind of wish that I had kept that stuff for a source book and kept it out of the core book, because I think that power design in 3rd edition is sometimes a little intimidating.
Yeah, it's funny because I actually remember you talking when you released Ultimate Power, that you wish you could go back and put Ultimate Power style modular power design in the core book.
Which is what I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now you regret it.
Now I'm like, probably not the best idea in retrospect.
So here's a question for
married, and there's no right answer when you go back in time.
Yeah. It's
so
true.
for the three of you, when you're looking at, taking a system that you created, or even, I would just apply on the adventure level, as you're kind of, creating iterations of your work, how much do you like, even if you're looking at it from a writing an adventure and there's a series and you want people to progress through this, the sort of omega, adventure is that changing of the editions as well. How much work do you put into, the reason I asked the question is, Joshua says, that the transition from 1st edition to 3rd edition for Mutants Masterminds were one of the few where he didn't really miss anything from earlier editions. How much of that can you really control, and do you agonize too much over, how hard of a transition to make between editions?
Well, it's something to consider carefully. I mean, you always, if you change anything, from one edition to another, which you have to, because otherwise it's not a new edition. then it's gonna end up being somebody's like, how dare you change that thing, no matter what it is. If somebody's going to be unhappy about it, and so you really can only do your best to create, choose what you think are the best and most necessary changes. Try not to change things unnecessarily, and do your best to take into account just the realities of the marketplace and your player base and things like that, in terms of backwards compatibility or learning curves and things like that. It's a delicate line to walk sometimes.
Yeah, I like that. Crystal, I'm interested from your perspective when you look at creating, being at the helm and sort of shepherding in we've got a whole new generation of people coming in playing. I mean, we are old, and they're embracing this kind of for the first time. When you look back on the material from the first and second editions, do you make recommendations? Do you have thoughts or pieces that you go back to as a sort of touchstone to keep you kind of inspired, and it's good enough, to last, even though it may not necessarily be in as relevant in the third edition?
Mechanically, I don't know, but first edition had a lot of fun random elements for things like, inspiration for an adventure or a villain's motivations or things like that kind of got dropped in favor of, planning everything out in second and third edition, which, is great at the table, but for me as a GM, having like some random inspiration helped a lot. And I mean, I understand why they would get cut because, it's the 21st century. You can go to tons and tons of writing websites and get random inspiration for adventures and storylines and characters. So page real estate is limited in a print product.
Yeah.
But it's
that said,
I think
I think the role-playing industry has sort of rediscovered its love for random tables since the 5th edition of D&D came along.
I hope so. I'll
I
also
really like
say
random tables for what it's worth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll also say that first edition had a great graphic. I was just peeking through to see if I could find it for describing cover, where it's a battle scene, and the various NPCs are varying degrees of hidden behind stuff. Oh, there you go. And we ended up stealing this idea for the Basic Heroes Handbook. I apologize, the nefarious Dr. Corgi.
It's a party.
Sending her coded messages out. So if you're one of the sleeper agents, you've just been activated.
Activating the sleeper cell. So okay, so I'm curious. If we look at first edition, second edition, and third edition, and you were to say, like, pick, maybe you get no more than 3 words to describe first, second, and third, what would they be? And this is for everyone, Alex and just kind of what would... Gosh. Is that hard?
Oh, jeez.
D&D with Kate, first edition.
First edition, I'd go with loose and chaotic.
Okay.
Steve?
Yeah, first edition, I would say is sort of, eager but awkward.
Okay.
I still love it very much.
Yep. Yep.
I mean,
I agree. I mean, I obviously, have a very special place in my heart for it, but at the same time, parts of it do make me kind of cringe.
Yeah. Although I do feel like out of the 3 editions, it's probably the fastest and easiest to pick up for a new player.
Yeah, that's true.
First edition is Peter Parker.
Yeah.
Third edition is Tony Stark. I don't know who's in the middle.
Miles Morales? Well, I guess Miles Morales would be first edition.
That's interesting.
Plucky.
Middle is no.
Plucky,
First,
yes.
first edition is Ant-Man.
Yeah.
Paul Rudd Ant-Man, I should say.
Right.
Second edition is Wasp.
So what's
Third edition, Tony Stark.
Hmm.
Except third
War
edition
Michelle
isn't
Pfeiffer.
like an egomaniac who ruins everything.
Right. I hope not. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm interested in hearing too from chat. I'm very curious to kind of like if you've had experience with first and second edition, you know, kind of you run through the exercise, do the very same thing. Nicholas does have a good question here. Will we ever get a complete Freedom City book, like a historical kind of?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. We have a very unofficial timeline document that a fan had been maintaining for many years. And that timeline document alone is something like 200,000 words long. You know, so it would be quite a book, and it still wouldn't be complete per se. You know, because honestly, there's still, you know, areas of Freedom City's history we've never defined, you know, beyond what's published in the existing books.
Well, I also think that's one of the great things about M&M that not a lot of other games do, is that the setting is dynamic. It advances as the editions advance, which I think is really interesting. Like, you move years ahead and you backfill stuff as you're moving through editions, which I think that's awesome.
Yeah. It's interesting, and I've said it before, I don't know if I would have made the same choice if I had known this was going to be going for 20 years.
Fair. I mean, we've
You
we've advanced it in real time, which means all the heroes we released in the first edition of Freedom City have aged 20 years, so Foreshadow's ready to break a hip.
Right? You would think. You know, a lot of them are just like, oh, my back.
Right.
Shadow does not have good medical health insurance.
I'm curious, Steve. You know, how would you have changed, or what would you have done differently if you were like, oh, this is going to be 20 years?
Well, I mean, in terms of the setting, I probably would have taken more of the, you know, sort of mainstream comics approach to it, of, you know, that sort of vague 15-year history to the setting, and that, you know, well, you know, this many years ago this happened, and it sort of kicked off, you know, all of it, and you could just sort of, you know, vaguely just carry it forward the same way Marvel and DC do with, you know, Superman first showed up about this long ago, and, you know, the Fantastic Four got their powers about 15 years ago, give or take. And everything has just sort of happened since then, and we're just kind of ignoring, you know, any of the, you know, historical weirdness that causes, you know, I mean, now, you know, in the, you know, the modern Marvel universe, you know, the Fantastic Four's rocket flight happened after 9/11, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I mean, which is weird.
Well,
Yeah.
Tony went to Afghanistan instead of Vietnam.
Right, and exactly. The cave Tony Stark like built his Iron Man armor in has been on, you know, 3 different continents, depending on, you know, where America was at war, you know, given that decade.
Well, what happens if we hit a phase of American history where we haven't been at war in 15 years?
Well, we'll let you know when it happens.
Yeah, I did not know that they had made that change to the timeline. That's
yeah. Well, and again,
bummer.
you know, the comics don't ever like call it out. They in fact try to their very best to kind of downplay it. But it's there nonetheless. I mean, you know, the Fantastic Four, you know, have been published in comics for like 50, 60 years, but obviously they're still basically the same age, or maybe like 5 or 10 years older than when they started.
At this point, Peter Parker's a millennial.
Right.
He's a Gen Z in the MCU.
So here's I love this interaction. Question from Who is the the freedom versus fan
Omega.
So what I liked is this answer.
It is I.
Yes.
I'm inevitable.
Right.
The thing is,
I like that.
I don't have to assemble a big collection of magical gems to snap my
Right.
fingers and kill your character.
Already omnipotent.
Yeah, all that work. Huh?
It's like, oh, aneurysm.
Shouldn't have eaten that chili cheese dog, Johnny Rocket.
I'm hungry for a chili cheese dog. So we've got such an amazing opportunity to. I mean, I feel like the Mutants and Masterminds Monday and the ability to connect with fans and the ability to. I mean, really, we build these great relationships with folks that I think uniquely is afforded by the whole tabletop experience itself. And then pandemic struck and we had to find a different way to kind of create our digital table. When it comes to, and this is our time to sort of share with the community, what, when it comes to sort of the new additions and when it comes to sort of the sort of developing momentum, these are human projects with sort of spots that are, that demonstrate an expertise, spots that demonstrate learning and all of that stuff. When it comes to the feedback that you get from the community, what is your dream sort of feedback? And, rather than kind of going into what we hate, because we all know what we hate, but like, what is the way that people can really catch your attention without like lighting themselves on fire?
Please don't set yourself on fire in front of me.
No, please don't. Yeah.
Oh, stinky.
If you gotta set yourself on fire, I'm willing to watch.
Crystal is there for you.
The girl's got needs.
Poor circulation. It gets cold in Seattle.
Right. It's true. It's very chilly.
It's been cold. It has been cold.
It's been very cold.
We need the heat of your hatred.
I mean,
but yeah. So I mean, let's talk about that.
In terms of feedback, the thing I like to hear the most from M&M players and fans is their actual experience playing the game. I'm a game designer. I will talk rules wonkiness with people, as far as that goes. But I'm really most interested in people's actual experience interacting with the game. And both like the fun, it's produced for their games, I hope, but also like their insights from just having that level of experience. Most of my, like I said, most of my changes that I ended up making in second edition were based on my actual experience of running and playing the game. One of the reasons that hero points ended up being the way they are was that running the game, I found it was more interesting in terms of the flow of it. If the player started out with very few hero points and built them up over the course of the game, rather than starting out with a big pool of them and then sort of whittling them down over the course of the game, I found out that it was starting to make the ends of the game, the climaxes of the game, kind of anticlimactic, because the heroes would get to them and they would have no hero points left, or they would feel the need to, carefully conserve them over the course of the game, and they wouldn't spend any, and they would run into, like excessive problems all the way up to the end, when then suddenly there would just be this bonanza of hero points, and they would walk through it.
Interesting. So practical understanding and application of what people experienced, as opposed to sort of a theological kind of conversation about like
theological is a good way of putting it.
Doesn't it feel that way? Like it's kind of
dogmatic.
Game design is
Very
kind of an article of faith, isn't it?
Yeah, it sure is. It sure is.
Yeah, I love hearing about people's characters, and I love hearing about what happens around people's tables. Like when GMs, like for instance, at Origins this year, I met a group of people who were big M&M fans who they just sat with me for like an hour while we were eating dinner, and they talked about all the crazy things that had happened in their campaign. And all the highlights, all those moments where the people are like, "This is the coolest thing ever," and it happened because they were playing a superhero game and because they were playing M&M. And it's not about what you can't do; it's what you can do that is awesome, which is so important to me.
It's all in the dice.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah. But Alex, too, that it sort of underscores what you're, it's sort of a validation of what you're trying to accomplish, right? You want people to escape and to have a moment where they feel it. They feel the story is about them and they're helping make it unfold, and you kind of given them the framework to do that. That's exciting. I could see why that would be really interesting and fun. Crystal, what's the thing that you really value the most when it comes to, that kind of feedback?
I mean, so one of my favorite things as a writer is that aha moment when you're like, everything kind of clicks into place and you see how it, finishes off, or you can see where you can go back and drop in the foreshadowing and it all just feels perfect. And I love helping inspire that in other people and hearing about the times they had that aha moment. Like over the weekend in my D&D game, our fighter got mind controlled by an aboleth. And she is a well-built fighter, so we were suddenly in a lot of trouble, and my cleric didn't have any of the spells that could break mind control, but my cleric did have banishment. So I got the aha moment of, she's not our problem now.
Don't need to room.
Just another world with you.
I love that ingenuity, that victory through ingenuity, and that, and also just being responsible for saving everybody, and sort of that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's kind of like working at a hardware store that sells tools of storytelling.
Yeah,
like we hand them everything. We hand them the hammer, the nails, and then tell them to go have a good time. And then sometimes they come back to us and tell us about the good time they had.
Yeah,
that's a really great metaphor. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Chris asks, the fighter or
the
which
fighter?
Would you banish?
I banished the fighter. Banishment requires a charisma saving throw, and aboleths have a lot of charisma, and fighters don't. Turns out giant three-eyed fish are way more likable than barbarians.
I know, go figure.
This is great, and I agree with this too. It's one of my favorite aspects is that the drama that ensues from players really getting into the complications and really making it, the center point. I mean, that is such a great balance to freedom. I'm a hero. I'm going to do all that I want, no matter what. No repercussions, no barriers.
Yeah, I love the things that evolve in home campaigns. I love hearing about the little recurring story elements that ended up meaning so much to this one group of people, like the characters they fell in love with, or the plot hooks they completely derailed, or the villains they hate.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, like my gaming group, like most like communities of nerds, can communicate largely in, like movie quotes and things like that. But one of the big elements of our lexicon is our shared experience at the game table. And we can make inside jokes about things that happened in games, 15 years ago that still crack people up, as far as that goes, and talk to each other in shorthand about those kinds of things. Jonesy brings up a good point about that.
Oh, yeah. With astonishing adventures.
Shared across tables, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I do love that. Hearing how different groups tackle different adventures.
Yeah,
I do love this.
That's nice to hear.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Player loves skill challenges. Well, good thing
dance
we let
battles
them in there.
and
yeah, right. I hope people like them because they're not going away.
Right.
Yeah, definitely pick up Danger Zone's courtroom so you can play out some skill challenge legal battles.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Upcoming Adventures has a lot of skill challenges on it.
Yeah, and the Cold Day in Midtown has a dance battle.
It does. Yes.
Is it a dance battle or an ice
Great
skating
stuff.
battle?
Well, it's an ice skating. It's an ice dancing battle.
Right, exactly. Ice dancing. Still dancing. The legitimate art form.
With knives.
Still dancing. I want to do that.
Right? It's dancing, right. It's dancing with knives attached to your feet. I mean,
Way more metal on your feet.
I like this. Your competency with skills and other derivative abilities is intrinsically linked to your attributes.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
I like that.
Just because I'm really good at law doesn't mean I'm really intelligent.
But
It's
because
a
you're
law
good at
school for
hacking
all.
computers, you're also very good at picking locks.
Mm-hmm.
See? Yeah, I mean, what I love is creating these, opportunities for people to connect with each other, but also just to get away for a minute and be heroic. And I have to. I mean, I really believe this. I believe that people who are playing Mutants and Masterminds, I think that they come out the other side of that feeling, heroic, being heroic. I mean, like they just had epic adventures with friends and they've, solved a thing or continue, they're hot on the trail or they're doing, some heroic stuff. I think that the more you flex that hero muscle, the more heroic you get.
Yeah, I like to hope so. I mean, I do think, folks brought up early on in this, one of the challenges sometimes is getting over that hurdle of getting folks who are only familiar with the sort of fantasy adventuring trope to play a superhero game as far as that goes, just because it is or can be a very different approach to role playing as far as that. So, I think that when folks do, though, they do seem to have a good time with it.
Yeah, it's. Oh, I just thinking about the times I've introduced new people to play or to games, even just Dungeons and Dragons, before they've learned the tropes or what they're supposed to do. I remember my wife and I introduced our downstairs neighbor, who was just a single mom who was kind of overwhelmed, to D&D, and what she wanted to do was like have her character go out dancing and party, and she kept asking things like, well, can I swing on the chandelier? Can I knee this guy in the groin? Can I do, all these things that aren't covered in the game, but she just had fun with and told a good story. And bringing people into a new genre really helps kind of break those habits of just playing according to what you think the rules are and trying something different.
You're welcome, Nicholas. That was a very unexpected side benefit of focusing on D20 rolls, because obviously I was not at all aware of Discord when that happened.
I dare say we might predate Discord by a few years.
I'd be willing to bet, yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, the D20, the focus on the D20 roll really just came down to my post-Champions aversion to rolling and post-Shadowrun aversion to rolling, 15 six-sided dice.
I feel like there's a part of me.
Count them.
There's a part of me that misses that so much.
Well, there is a certain, sort of impact to it. I mean, nothing says big attack like, dropping a giant handful of dice on the table. But at the same time, when you have to then count and add them, twice, it was just like, no.
Too much.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that you took like Champions and made it not hit your face, like Shadowrun.
Well, you can thank most of my college gaming experience for that.
Yeah, I always tell people at the beginning of every one of our streams that M&M is a narrative-driven superhero game that has a little bit of crunch in it if you're into that sort of thing, and you can get whatever you want from M&M, which is great in my opinion.
Yeah, the way I like to describe it is roll a d20 and frown meaningfully at the results.
It's one of my favorite. I want to make that into a T-shirt. I really do.
All right.
That's just GMing.
Yeah, it is GMing in general.
Yeah, except in this case, the players get to do it too. It's like, I want to use my power to do a thing.
I have some bad news. The show's almost over.
It is.
You haven't even talked about Roll20 and how we're about to release Bank.
I have not.
I know.
You know, and Apook said VTTs make it easy to roll.
Yeah, that's true. VTTs do make it
but
easy
you don't
to
get
do
that
that.
clunk.
Right.
That's true.
They
That's true.
take away most of the fun of it, too.
Mm-hmm.
Crystal, are you a
Apook's
dice kobold?
Say what?
Apook's gotten really
Are you
good
a
at making
dice
dice
kobold?
noises with his
How dare
mouth.
you?
Well, so we've got some Roll20 news in the waning moments of this program, of which I feel like we could go on talking about some of this stuff and the various aspects of it, for another hour. But Danger Zone Banks, one of the most dangerous zones known to man, known to me anyway.
Known to finance.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Dangerously low on funds, I have to say. So it's available on Roll20. Apook, I am unsure how to share my best laid plans, but Apook is our man at the helm of rolling out those. Working with Roll20 and getting our stuff published, and so kudos to you, my friend, and very excited to announce to everybody that we have updated all of the danger zones so that they have maps that you can utilize in a way that allows you, regardless of whether you're subscribing to Roll20 or not, you can utilize that map in your adventures in a way that is easy and not painful.
Exciting.
Nice.
I'm really excited about that.
I like not being in pain. I assume.
Me too.
Right?
Sometimes. Here's a question. What do we have? Like a couple minutes left. Danger Zone Banks. What's a great way to utilize that in adventure?
Well, I mean, the obvious one is have a bank robbery that your players foil or get caught up in the middle of.
Yeah.
But
that is a great opening scene for any adventure. Is just, hey, heroes, the bank's being robbed. And it's a terrific way to introduce players to how the game runs, to get them in the mood, and just be like they're heroes versus some bad guys. It's usually an environment that has interesting stuff around it, plenty of civilians to protect.
Yeah, you throw in one or two supervillains and a whole bunch of mooks.
Alternatively, this bank is owned by a villain. Let's rob it.
Yes,
I like that.
The Kingpin Bank.
Kingpin. And we're vigilantes, not goody-goody superheroes. Another good excuse is on this map. I included a forgotten fallout shelter because back in the golden age of Cold War, a lot of banks, because they were so securely built, had fallout shelters built into the basements. This is a great reason to break into the bank if you are goody-goody superheroes. If you discover some key mission-critical item was locked away in that fallout shelter 70 years ago and forgotten about, well, now you got to break into that bank without the villains finding out where it is.
And that hidden and forgotten fallout shelter makes a great secret lair for some villain who's discovered it.
Yeah, I was also thinking somebody's trapped in the vault.
Yep.
Ooh, yeah, and then we have a clip show.
Right. Where the characters trapped in the vault reminisce and work out all their issues.
Planeteers did a great episode of that.
Great. That's classic. I love it.
Where they had a quantum leap machine, so Dr. Blight was sending them back in time so they didn't become Planeteers and end up trapped in the vault. And things just got awful.
I love it. All right. Well, listen, we are out of time, but certainly not out of things to say. I want to thank everybody who's been watching, and also, 20 years is that's quite an accomplishment. And I think I'm glad that you didn't know, Steve, and because what you have built and what you have facilitated is pretty remarkable. Do you ever have moments where you're like, hey, I did that? Or are you just, oh yeah, shucks.
My imposter syndrome is pretty strong enough to deal with not having too many of those moments. So they're fairly rare.
hate for you to feel pride in your work.
Yeah, no.
Right? I mean, come on.
Just moments,
Well, Steve,
Well-
for what it's worth, M&M changed my life, and I appreciate
Oh,
that
thank you,
you
Alex.
created it. I would not be here today without M&M, doing a job that I love,
Oh,
You know, I think
talking about
a lot
superheroes
of
with everybody on the internet.
a lot of people would echo those sentiments, and I know I've heard folks just talk about how much fun that they have and how important Mutants and Masterminds is today and yesterday, and all of the versions, all the work that's done. I mean, the three of you should, take a little victory lap and pat yourself on the back for the work that you do to kind of keep.
we didn't do crap. Steve is the one who put in all the effort here.
Well, he
I was
is.
10. I was 10.
Crystal and Alex have put in a lot of effort since. And
They sure
it is much
have. They sure have.
appreciated.
But it is a testament to you, Steve, that all anybody has to do is just want to be a hero, and you've got them set up to be able to step in and to tell great stories and have good times with humans around a table, or digital or otherwise. So
Yeah,
that's
all I could hope for.
Right. I mean, and I think that's what makes you a particularly special human being. So that is Mutants and Masterminds Monday. We've got who knows what's happening in the coming days. We could continue to our 20th anniversary, our birthday, with all kinds of celebration. We were going to pick a winner of something. Do we want to do that now, or we want to inform people later?
No.
Or?
We'll figure it out later.
Yeah. So if you think that you should have won something, send a note to let's play at greenronin.com, and you tell me why you think you should have won, and then we will convene the tribunal and let you know whether or not you are a winner. But you could be, so you better try. Thanks everybody for listening and hanging out and watching and being such a great audience. Particularly wonderful show today. A lot of fun, and we look forward to seeing you next Monday, 2 p.m. Pacific. Don't forget, we have Thursdayage coming up, and it will be with Owen Kesey Stevens, and we will be talking all kinds of Thursdayage kinds of stuff. We'll also be connecting with our friends over on Facebook. They've got a big community there that's in the midst of sharing some great thoughts on why they like age. There might be a prize involved with that too. So we will see you all. We'll see you all Thursday, and then Monday for Mutants and Masterminds Monday. But until then, have a great rest of your week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, Dr. Corgi.
Bye, Dr. Corgi.
No, legit. No.